I think we're live. I want to go ahead and start off for all those tuning in, just kind of giving a quick overview. My name's Kevin Getch. I'm the CEO of Web4. I'm also on the board of SEM PDX. And for those in Vancouver, I'm on the Greater Vancouver Chamber of Commerce as well. But we actually put this Digital Marketing Quarterly event together because at SEM PDX, it's a nonprofit. We help teach on digital marketing. We work with small businesses. We work with students. We work with those in the digital marketing industry to always do continuing education. And there was really not a whole lot over on this side of the river. And so we said, let's do Digital Marketing Quarterly and bring different people in, different experts in to continue providing education and insights. And it's just been amazing to do. I want to go ahead. We have a great panel of amazing speakers with us today. I want to do a quick introduction so that you guys know, a little bit about who them. I'll give them a chance to introduce themselves as well. We have Dene Grigar. She is the professor and director of creative media and digital culture at Washington State University, Vancouver. We also have Lacey J, Faught, who is the CEO of Spry, and Tricia Payne, who is a partner at Web4 as well, and the director of accounts as well. Dene, you want to go ahead and just kind of tell us a little bit about yourself? We'll go around, and so everyone kind of gets a little introduction to you, and then we'll kick off the panel.
Yeah, so I oversee the creative media and digital culture unit at my campus. And in that program, we teach social media marketing, which has been a very popular major for our students. And we have we teach everything from marketing to content development, strategy, SEO, which is exciting. Our students walk away with an understanding of video production and animation, 2D, 3D modeling, and gamification, which is really helpful. I came to Washington State in 2006 and built this program with my husband, and we are lifers here. We love it. So Came from Texas. So if you hear twang, that's why.
Yes, you are a pillar in the community, and we appreciate you and all that you've been on the Digital Marketing Quarterly events before. Thank you for coming back. Lacey J.
I'm grateful to be on the panel. Dene, I've loved every bit of time that we've been able to engage together. And Tricia, I'm really excited to kind of get to know you a little bit more through this too. I think we've got a really powerful group here. I am a Washington State University grad, go Cougs. My major was broadcast news and political science. And I very quickly turned that into a marketing entrepreneurial path. Mm-hmm. So this year is actually my 13th year owning my business and running my business. And that's all that I've done with my career and niche down to focusing specifically on social media. And as I've helped, hundreds of businesses over the last 13 years on social media, what I'm most focused on right now is improving the overall landscape and experience that businesses and people are having on social media, the impact that the platforms are having on us, and how we can impact the platforms as well. So I'm very focused on that right now.
That's awesome. All right, Tricia.
Yeah, thank you. This is a great panel to be on. So Kevin, you mentioned I'm the director of accounts here at Web4, also a partner. I've been in the business, though, going on 20 years, started in the local area, wide area networking space, and then moved into digital marketing for the past 17 years. Don't want to get into a college battle, but I graduated from USC, so I'm a Trojan. I'm originally from the Los Angeles area, but moved here in 97 to start my career. I also have so my degree is in business, the School of Business from USC, and then also a degree in electrical engineering and graphic design from Clark College here in the local area. 20 years in digital marketing. My focus now, after playing in every space from SEO to paid advertising to branding and logo design, is on strategy. So my role is really to create strategies for our customers and build out the channels and tactics that are going to work best for them across the variety of digital marketing space elements you can deploy for growth, and just making sure that all of our clients are growing in that space, whatever ways we push them.
And it's weird how the world works, because like Tricia hired our current president of our company, hired him at his first digital marketing job 16 years ago or something like that. So he came back and came full circle. Cool. And so Yeah. Well, I want to dive right into it because we have a lot of different things we want to go over, and we don't have as much time as we probably would like to discuss all these topics. But the topic that's the top of everyone's mind right now is really AI, right? It's artificial intelligence. How am I going to use that in digital marketing? How is it going to impact me in my jobs? What are some of the different like ethical concerns or considerations? And a lot of people have just fear in general, because many times either they know a lot and that's why they have fear, or they don't know that much and they just have fear in general. And I kind of fall in the middle because I can see both sides of that. But I wanted to start by maybe each of you sharing a little bit about how you see AI being used in digital marketing today. And anyone can feel free to jump in and start.
Well, I'll go ahead and speak just from how my company and my employees are using AI right now. And specifically, we're using it as a way to prompt ideas. So we've got to write hundreds of social media posts a week for, our 30 or so clients. And so coming up with ideas for years and years of time, we're good at it, but like, it's nice to have a little help. So coming in and saying, give me 10 reasons why X, Y, Z. And then being able to just filter through that and go, oh, 2 of those I kind of like. I'll pull from that and use that as an idea. That's one way we're using it. Another way we're using it is in taking notes from the meetings that we're in. We've been using a tool that will kind of plug into our meetings, and it records our meetings and gives us itemized breakdowns of what we talked about, what some of the major questions we asked were, and summarizes it for us. And that has really helped us to be more organized in how we make sure that we follow through on the tasks, that we don't leave behind any ideas that were great ideas that just kind of slipped our mind as we're then going through the content creation process. So kind of organizing our ideas, giving us prompts. And what we're definitely not using it for right now is like anytime we're looking for stock photography and we're going through stock photography websites, I have to train everybody really well to turn off, to exclude generative AI on images. Because right now, at least in our profession and our experience, the AI images that are coming through are not the type of images that are going to build social media communities the way we want to. It's easy to see through that they're not real. So there's a little bit of what we are and aren't doing.
Perfect. Thanks, Lacey.
Yeah, I would say there's definitely the job and workflow space is, I think, where you're seeing some of the heaviest lifting in AI across the industry. But there's like so many areas that AI is touching right now that are incredible. Like if we're talking about e-commerce, for instance, the economies of scale that you can deploy in that space, from fraud detection, because a lot of these e-commerce companies, the bigger they get, the more scalability that they're seeing in terms of the number of products that they're marketing or the amount of traffic they have, and transferring financial data and security becomes a really big factor for them. And AI is going to play a very big role in understanding those models of fraud and detecting them and locking things down more quickly. It's also going to provide a huge volume of efficiencies. So as your inventory drops and you have 10 units instead of 100 and you want to change the pricing on the fly, that's no longer a manual process with AI tools being deployed in the background of that experience. So it's not only making the companies more efficient, but it's making the user experience more dynamic. Chatbots are going to be huge players in the e-commerce space for AI, because they're just going to get better at sounding human and having all the things they need to answer the questions immediately and not waiting for a human to do some background research to respond to that. I think it's a $13 billion space just in the chatbot area alone for e-commerce. And then you've got the whole SEO space, which is like crazy cool what's going on there. You have things that you had to do manually in some ways, from an analysis standpoint, whether it was keyword research and churning through 10,000 keywords to find that gold. You have tools that can pull that data, organize that data, and just streamline the process from tens of 20 hours worth of one person's work or life down to literally minutes, just so you can now focus on the quality of that data and implementing it, but not have to be bogged down by the the mining of that data, if you will. Those are some of the spaces I'm seeing some really cool stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. What
I made
about
a
you, Dene?
list, and I made a list, and I'm going to repeat a few things, but I think there's some things that I haven't heard. So prompting ideas, absolutely. This is just such a no-brainer. And brainstorming, we're using it a lot in brainstorming, teaching students how to do that for their job preparation, revising their work. You know, they write something and they feed it into the ChatGPT, for example, and then they realize that they've missed a few points, right? And I've seen examples where ChatGPT has caught them in errors, which has been helpful. Note taking, or love, like you said, Lacey, the note taking is just phenomenal. Checking copy, you know, that's another thing. Drafting copywriting, so that's important. In content development, I hear what you're saying about using it for image development. Students are using Dolly in our program to experiment with image production. And I find that what's helping our students do a good job with Dolly is knowing exactly what questions to ask Dolly. If somebody just says, I need an image of a parrot sitting in a tree, you're going to get stock images and they look fake. But if you teach the students to ask the right questions, to prompt the right responses, you know, what kind of parrot, how are they sitting, how high up in the tree, what kind of tree, what kind of environment, I find that they get a better result. So I think just training my students to think more specifically about what they need, right? And then comparing, once again, feeding those images back. This is an exercise we do, feeding it back in to get a response, and then checking their images with what's out in the field. So those are a lot of things we're doing to try to mitigate some of the clip art feel that we're seeing. I have a colleague in my department, Will Lures, who is specializing in AI video, and the work he's doing is phenomenal. He's an international artist working in this area. So, you know, there's ways to create really great content, especially with animation, video, and images. But you have to know what you're doing, and that's what we're trying to train the students to do. And one thing I will say to you, Tricia, the thing that does concern me is that a lot of people in companies will say, well, I can just do this in AI and I don't need to hire anybody to do it. And then you see what they're producing and it's not very useful. So what I have to tell my friends that are running companies or trying to do something, nonprofits especially, is you've got to know how to ask the right questions. That takes training, right?
Yeah.
So, and then also when they do know how to do it though, a job that would take 4 people goes down to 1. And that concerns me because I'm trying to get students jobs. I want my students to be able to work.
Right, exactly. I do see all these ads on social media that crack me up. They're like, SEO is dead, social media is dead, AI is taking over everything. And I think it's dangerous to compare it to industry disruptions that have happened in the past because it is very different. You know, we're not talking about changing formats from physical media to digital media. That was definitely disruptive, right? We don't have the yellow pages anymore, disruptive to that industry. But AI has bigger implications and requires a more conscious understanding of the implications that the role it can play. And this discussion actually goes beyond digital marketing. But if we're just talking about the digital marketing space, it is disruptive in that way. You can save time, but I look at it from this perspective. You are now utilizing the time of individuals to do the work that AI cannot do, which is the strategy, the deployment, the analysis part of it. But you're saving so much time on the mundane side of things. So, you know, I know that in my industry, I have a lot of colleagues that are in the content writing space or in the SEO space, and there is a lot of fear around, you know, what's going to happen to my job and my role. And I think your point is well taken, Dene, in that you might not need 5 content writers anymore, but you still need content writers. You might not need 5 SEO specialists, but you need SEO specialists. So it will be disruptive in that space, but it's definitely not taking anybody's jobs away, in my opinion.
Yeah, it can't replace individual jobs, but it can make the people that adopt it and utilize it will make them way more efficient. So you'll be being more efficient means you don't maybe need as many people to do that, which anyways, well, I do want to dive deeper into that topic, but Dene, you actually reminded me of the time when we first were kind of in this, and I was using Midjourney, and I like created a whole, because I do martial arts, and I created this whole like rash guard, and I designed this thing, and learning how to prompt, that was like my experiment in that. Like, you have to, like, the way I think of it is you have a 3-year-old that doesn't have a lot of identity but knows like the world's information, and so you have to give it a vantage point, you have to give it an identity, you have to give it a goal, you have to kind of like go through and kind of mold this kind of identity around it, and then say, this is your goal, these are the things that you want to do, and it performs at such a higher level when you do that. So 100% agree with the prompting side of things.
I was going to mention, back in the mid to late 90s, I worked in a virtual space called Moos and Muds. These are multi-user domains. And we used bots. We would program bots to do things in these, to automate some things. And so I built one for Texas Women's University, because this was pre-Blackboard, pre-LMSs that we had. So the university gave me a pot of money to build a teaching environment using these Moos and Muds. And so when a student would teleport into the space, they wouldn't know what to do. So I programmed a bot to talk to them and take them around, right? And the big funny thing was the student thought it was a real person, an avatar of me or someone talking to them. So if the thing was, you had to be good at programming the bot so the bot sounded human, right? Working with bots in the 90s and what's happening now, it's just, I mean, I thought I was doing a good job back then. Now, it's hard to tell. After a while, if a student is, in that space long enough, they can figure out this is a bot. It's not a human being, right?
I created one in a weekend with OpenAI. I created a chat bot that could communicate like with our brand voice, with all of our, and it was just like, this is ridiculous. I want to dive. Oh, go ahead.
Just one point on this. Isn't it interesting how much this is making us think about what does human sound like? Because the whole point of all of this is to have a sense of connection with one another and to be able to actually analyze, like, were we acting human before, or were we just spitting out content? And now here we are with the opportunity to say, what does humans sound like? That's not quite right. What is more? What is our brand voice? You're able to program it with your brand voice, which means you had to really, really think about and identify what it is. And that's a gift in and of itself of this tool, is really diving deep into what is that about us that makes connection unique? How do we connect, and what pieces of that are the most important for us to bring forth in using this technology?
That's such a great point. Now we're getting into the philosophical aspects of all this. Like, what does it mean to be human? Which I find very interesting.
Well, the Industrial Revolution, like if you look back before that, everything was powered by animals, right? It was like powered by humans or animals. And we got the steam engine. And we're in this kind of fourth industrial revolution where the way we work is going to change significantly it already has changed significantly for many of us, but it's going to continue to change significantly in the coming years. And so I do want to talk a little bit about the ethics kind of portion of AI. What are some of the different implications and ethics around AI that you see as being important, being challenging, things that maybe need to be addressed? And feel free to jump in.
Before we do, I want to give a shout out to Jason Lee. I can't seem to comment inside the chat, but hi, no Jason.
I'll speak from an implication on a social media standpoint. I've watched the past couple of election year cycles, and what happens on social media is a lot of people's social media accounts will get hacked, okay? And then they are programmed to comment on posts with specific trigger words in them. And they might comment kind of images with specific messages. They might comment with just specific trigger words that are things that are meant to kind of spark conversation and argument. And with the induction of AI into this, Like 4 years ago and 8 years ago, we didn't have that. And it still was an absolute nightmare on social media. And so with the ability to say, okay, give me 10,000 posts that say XYZ in it, and it just spit all that out, and then I can just push it all out. It's going to be very, very difficult over the next 9 months to be on social media without arguing with everyone. If you do not understand what's happening, if you do not understand how much you're being impacted by people who are literally trying to distract and cause contention, that's what I'm the most nervous about ethically, is just making sure that we elevate everyone's digital literacy to understand that not every argument is organic and not every comment has to be commented back to. That's what I'm the most nervous about.
Yeah, let's take it a step further, Lacey, because you're talking about some intentional manipulation of AI. But then there's also the fact that AI is learning from us. And we are naturally biased, discriminatory people, some more than others. And so what it's learning and replicating includes that bias and discrimination. So it complicates the equation even further, because we want to get further away from being biased and discriminatory. I mean, that's the world we're moving towards, but we're implementing AI to actually replicate that and push it out there. So that's an area where I think as humans, we have to be very mindful and thoughtful about what we're consuming and what it means and where it came from.
Yeah, like I said in the beginning, my degree was in journalism, broadcast journalism, and I'm watching people on social media who are sharing content like they're a journalist without doing any research. Like, I think if we could just train this group of people who are on social media to like click back 3 times before they share a piece of content, it would be a whole different conversation online, a whole different conversation. That's my major goal. Can we click back 3 times?
Well, I'm going to talk about the use of AI to take the place of human beings in places where we think they're useful, like making a hotel reservation, making a airline reservation. Those, we expect AI to be in those spaces now. Where we don't expect them is in other places where we think they're human and they're not. So I think there's an ethic involved with companies letting their clients know, letting their customers know, you're about to meet an AI entity. And our AI entity is named Siri or whatever the name is, right? And they're going to talk to you about this issue that you're having. And they're smart and they can figure this out. But it's very problematic when you think you're talking to a human being and you're not. And so that, I mean, circling back to my bot experiences back in the 90s, we didn't want our students to be humiliated in these spaces thinking they were talking to a human being. So we would have our bots announce themselves, hi, I'm the Pioneer Woman, or I'm such and such. I'm here to help you. I'm not human. I'm a bot. And I even have here in my office this little ribbon that I keep. I'm a bot. All bot are liars, right? And just because we need to let people know when we're interacting with each other and when we're interacting with a machine. I think that's just at the base of what we need to do as human beings in these ways. Just one more thing I'll say is that we're teaching our students to document. Like, how do you document an image you got from AI, like from Dolly? And so we're working very hard for them to say, okay, I used this engine, I asked these prompts, I got this response, I refed that information in on this date and time and got this response. So I have them document the process. And by making them do that, they're having to think through the process themselves and the flow of thinking, but it also grounds them in the work they do and make them understand that they're responsible for what they output themselves. It's not, they can't just blame the machine. Right?
Google has actually been very careful about communicating what it will and will not regulate from an AI content perspective. And it has some guidelines and some opinions, but one thing that they have communicated very strictly is that reviews that are driven by AI content will be regulated heavily by Google. And Google makes mistakes in that space. So it's very important for companies to understand that authentic human reviews are critical because they have such a heavy weight in the user experience. And Google's always going to care more about the searcher than the business or the product. So if they are getting reviews that are clearly not, if AI is not using the wrinkle cream and getting results from it, or wearing it's right. So
I have the smoothest bot skin you've ever seen. It's stainless steel.
Right. So, I mean, that's an area that Google has communicated that it will regulate very heavily, and it will make mistakes. So it will regulate real reviews, thinking that they're bot driven. So it's incredibly important for companies to understand the importance of authentic human reviews and publishing things that they can back up, to your point, Dene, with, the user experience.
Yeah.
I think I was saying this, I was like, we could spend the whole time talking about this, but I do also want to dive in some of the implications we've seen over the last couple of years, which much like security and convenience are kind of opposites ends of the spectrum. There's privacy online, and then there's the ability to kind of track and monitor and measure results and report results on the other end of the spectrum. And so there's this kind of balance as marketers that we have to navigate between privacy regulations like the GDPR or California's CCPA or all the other acronyms that are out there, and clients. So I'd love to hear, what are some of your thoughts on the impacts of kind of the cookieless future we're heading towards, and what other ways or what other avenues might we be doing as we lose certain ability to track and report on results in meaningful ways?
Yeah. Tricia, I think that was yours, wasn't it? Yours and Tracy.
Sure. I'll take it. But I mean, there's two sides to the equation. There's your permission to be tracked so that your experience is customized, right? I think we call that the first party data side of things. But the tracking side of it for the business side, I mean, the California Consumer Protection Act, the CCPA that you're referencing there, Kevin, is California's good at this. They're always the first ones to hit the ground running with these protection spaces, whether it comes to products and all kinds of avenues that it touches. It will be rolled out to other states. And these are laws that companies are going to have to abide by. So the consumer has the opportunity to opt out of being tracked. And that's just going to make your data less reliable in terms of being able to use that to make decisions. But at the end of the day, if you know who your customer is and you know what their journey is, you should be able to communicate to them and reach them regardless of tracking them and getting that, basic demographic data that you're looking for, because it's more than just how old they are, what income do they make. It's what's their buying experience like? How do they make decisions? What problems are they trying to solve? So it actually kind of pushes the business to be authentic in that space, to be able to tell their story, because AI is not going to be able to tell your story. It doesn't know your story. You have to tell your story, and then it can help exemplify that out into the world. But at the same time, you're naturally, authentically going to reach your users and not require that invasion of privacy. And I think consumers, I'm a consumer, and I can tell you, I'd rather you didn't have my private data. I'd rather you didn't know these things about me. I'd rather you be authentic and reach me the right ways instead of recording my voice. Because I guarantee you, when we're done with this talk, that my phone that's sitting right next to me is going to be displaying ads about AI everything to me for the next month. Mm-hmm. It's going to track everything I do and communicate that way to me. And it's annoying. We see it, right? I've already bought the TV. Stop sending me ads about the TV, right? So the privacy space is important. It's happening whether we like it or not. It is going to affect data capture. It's going to skew your numbers. You're not going to have the same level of data to make decisions, but the trends will still be there. And the ability to make decisions off those trends will still be there. But it's going to force businesses to be more authentic.
And I think it's smart how much we are talking about it and how much we are changing things, because the digital literacy of maybe like millennials, we just click yes, 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 accept without even really thinking about it. I've got an 11-year-old daughter, and we downloaded an app and we started using it. And she's like, how much does it cost? I'm like, it's free. She goes, oh, so it's stealing our data. I'm like, yes, that's exactly correct. So they know, you know what, they know what they're doing. And as long as we know, I think that's a really good step in the right direction.
That is amazing. Yeah, it's a thing that I have challenges with myself, because it's like, we know for, some of our clients that we're, and this is one of the things in marketing, and Tricia, you kind of touched on this, is like, because we've had all this ability to track data, we've gotten heavily focused on like what is driving this conversion, and a little less kind of broader focused on brand and market and what's moving some of the other needles. And so I do think it is going to force us a little bit back on the spectrum to take a little more of a holistic approach, like you talked about, and really understand kind of that broader strategy of what's working. There is, and I don't know, this just came out, I think it was 2 days ago, Google announced Meridian, which is like a, now I'm forgetting, MMM. What's that? Media mix model?
Media mix model.
Media mix model. There you go. I'm like, I get all the acronyms and stuff. But that's a potential solution among the many solutions that are out there trying to provide that kind of tracking to better show like, hey, this is what's really influencing it. But the fact of the matter is, we've never been able to track 100% of the customer journey, and you never will be able to. It's just not possible. But we're going to lose. Like if the best was 80%, we're going back to 70% or whatever it is, and it's different for each business. But any other thoughts on how we can kind of adapt our strategies to balance privacy while achieving the goals of our campaign and being able to report on those?
I hear people talk about privacy in the paid ad space a lot. I think that's where digital literacy kind of falls short. Because, you're spending a lot of money to place ads in front of your audience. And if you think about advertising just high level, not digital, but just advertising, period, when you're spending $100,000 to put a TV ad up during a show that you think reaches the same demographic you want to, there's still gaps and holes in the process of knowing who you're reaching and what they're going to do about, if anything, and tracking them. So that's always been a part of the advertising space. When it comes to Google AdWords, I don't really think we need to think about it too much, because you're not targeting the demographic space there. You're targeting keyword search. What are people looking for? What problem are they trying to solve? So that part of it to me is less of a player than maybe some of the social media advertising spaces that do a deeper dive into demographic tracking, like companies that have this many employees, or this person who's married and has a household income of $200,000. Some of that more deeper level tracking, I think, will disrupt that space. But again, I think it all comes up to the same point, which is, authentically reaching your audience by knowing what their problem is and how you uniquely address it. Because the user actually has a better subconscious experience with that than feeling like you're being targeted because they're in a certain subset demographic space.
I can say that working with young people, as I do at the university, they want real human experiences. We think of them as being phone people, digital media people, but what they want are people, right? And so before I became an academic, much to a lot of people's chagrin, I had a marketing company, design and marketing company in Dallas, Texas, for 5 years. And so I did old fashioned, right? This is pre-web. This is the 80s, using X-Acto knives and, T-squares and those kinds of things. But we did the old fashioned tear outs, where people would tear something out, fill it out and send it back in. You'd say, okay, I got 3% return. This is great. We'd advise our clients to, let's get an ad. Let's get an article about you in Redbook, for example, is one of my clients. Or let's have you become the expert of Cajun food in New Orleans, and you would do a newsletter. So there was these old-fashioned ways of doing things that have been supplanted by digital media. And I've been involved in that revolution and been teaching it. What I find interesting in going from that early period to the digital and now to what we consider the post-digital, right, is that we're circling back to the human experience. People want to be connected. They want to know that you're talking to them, that you are reaching out to them. I find that I do better if I go out to the public and talk to people. This event here, we've got 40 plus people here. We're talking to people and we're not using AI to do it. And so that is where we're circling back to. And AI, weirdly enough, is taking us there. And it's the fear of AI, the fear of AI that's driving it. So
well, the social, and this kind of leans right into kind of the social media landscape as a whole, and how everything is just constantly changing. New platforms are increasing, new features are rolling out, algorithm changes are happening. I'd love to hear some of your thoughts on how businesses should really approach some of these new platforms, and really, what are your thoughts on? And I already know some of the answers to this that you're going to say, so I don't want to lead in too much, but it's because it's going to be different, right? It's going to be different for different businesses. But I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts on what businesses should be doing from a social media standpoint, and how they should be addressing and delivering through social media to their audience.
I think one of the most untapped action items for businesses is customer research on social media. Being on TikTok and every small business having a TikTok presence and working on putting out content all the time, I think is not going to be the most effective use of time. But finding who your audience is and what they're talking about, because that's what's happening on TikTok, is these constant conversations. It's just transactional all the time, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It's such a different platform than any others, where what our main focus was building up a platform for ourselves and speaking to people off the platform. TikTok is about communities of people who care about specific ideas, and you can learn everything about what those people care about if you spend some time researching them. So that's the biggest untapped opportunity for businesses, is to get onto some of these new platforms and not worry so much about the content that they're putting out, but use it as a tool to learn about the people who they're trying to connect with, and use that to create a smaller quantity of ads and a smaller quantity of content on multiple different platforms, because then it's actually going to speak to the things that they really, really care about. I think there has been a really long period of time here in social media over the past 5 years or so where people are worried about putting out so much content. I need to be posting daily. I need to be posting twice daily. I need to be posting on all these different platforms. And I think we're getting into a space where it's really becoming a bit more simplified from a brand perspective, because people have their own platforms and their own things that they get to choose to tap into whatever they want to. And you think they're going to tap into your window cleaning business when they've got the opportunity to be on ADHD TikTok and learn everything they can about their own brain? No. So what you got to do is just filter down to come up with what is the actual message that's going to hit these people. And you build a small quantity of those and put it out intentionally on the platforms where those people might be. I could go off. I get a little fired up.
You just touched on something, Lacey, that's kind of funny, because coming from the privacy conversation we just had, I mean, if you want to know something about people, we let it all out on social media, probably way more than we should.
Exactly.
Right? We are exposing ourselves intentionally without anybody asking our permission. We're just giving them, right? So your point is well taken, that there's a huge hotbed of opportunity for companies to really learn more about who their customer is and what triggers them, what they care about, what problems are they trying to solve.
What's hard about it is if we go back to that conversation about how do we report on data, and I've kind of always been in the camp that qualitative data is just as important as quantitative data. Being able to screenshot one comment thread that has real substantial conversation between it and putting that side by side next to your cost per click, like I think they're both just as valuable. And that might be something that business owners need a little bit of education on as we move forward, because we've been trained for many years now by what I like to call funnel bros, who are just like 10x this, 10x that. Yeah. And like, you know, they should probably 10x their friends, because do they have any? I don't know. You know, focus on the human experience and you're going to have a better overall outcome. It's got to be at least just as important in the reporting process. So a lot of it, I think, is mindset.
Funnel bros. Funnel bros is now a new word for me. I'm totally stealing that.
I want to jump into what you just said, Lacey, about the human experience. And I think that would be the thing that I tell people all the time is don't look at the platform as a platform. Look to see what's happening inside that platform. And if you've been watching what's happening with what's happened to Twitter, now X, over the last year and a half, you saw the incredible change in that environment, right? Different audience, completely different audience. I'm still on it because there's still communities there that I'm connected to, like the VR community. But the academic community's gone. They left a long time ago, right?
Journalists are on their way out.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole like an exodus of people leaving. At the same time, there's still not going to call it a market. There's still people there, and those people I want to talk to, right? So that's the message I would give any business: is don't go into it thinking that you're looking at a market. Look to see the people that are there and what they're saying, what they're telling you they want, what they tell you that they need, and what they like. That information will drive so much of your success.
And I guess to your original question too, Kevin, like one thing that I would recommend for business owners who are working in marketing is just being really judicious about where you are putting your brand. Because you can tell there is a big difference on who is on each platform. And again, Dene, I love you saying don't consider it a platform, because I love that, because it's like it's a room. It's like it's a literal place where people are spending time. So if we can think of it as like, if you were to walk into a physical space, like who do you want to be in that room? That's how you're choosing your platforms. It's not based on like which one you're the most entertained by, or, you know, what it's about who is your target demographic and where are they hanging out. And you don't have to be everywhere. You don't have to be posting on all platforms. You could be very successful spending time on one platform and having a pinned post on every other platform that says, find us over here, you know?
I was going to say on Twitter, you know, I have so many people complain about the kind of comments they get on Twitter. I don't get that. And so you have to say, well, why is my experience on Twitter different? It's because I've never followed certain people. And, you know, back in the day, we could block with abandon, right? And so I don't have people following me, and I don't have that kind of thread that I think a lot of people who are, unaware of what they're, following and what they're agreeing to gets them in trouble. Yeah. And I started that policy a long time ago when I started using Twitter, 2008, when I was teaching Twitter to my students. And I thought I better model good Twitter behavior so that they'll see me in this space, and Facebook and all the others that emerged too. But if you look at my Twitter feed, you're not going to find a lot of that, what I call dirty junk, that people complain about. It doesn't happen.
Yeah, just, Lacey, you got me thinking too, a thing that I hear from business owners all the time, and sometimes we even get in that trapping ourselves because we're a business, right? Is that we need to be publishing everywhere all the time. We have to be on Facebook, X, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, and there's so many platforms you can be on. And what I think businesses forget or get complicated by is trying to be on all spaces, but also doing it the same way.
Yes.
How you do things on YouTube is different than how you'll do them on Instagram. And the same thing with true for Facebook and LinkedIn. Each
Thank you.
room, if you will, has some operating standards, and the users know what those are. They know how to interact in that room, in that space. It's different than a coffee shop or a concert, or where you're going and how you act is really important. And businesses sometimes just come in and start acting like they know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so easy for the user to see that they're not authentic. They don't know what they're doing here. They don't know how to use this space, and we do. So we're going to they don't even think about it. They just ignore you. So business is not only focusing on the space that works well for them, but also really understanding how to operate in that space. And then if they decide to move into a second or third space, learning that space before they do so, because they can't just replicate.
And I guess lastly with that is like a willingness to be vulnerable. So many conversations that our account managers have with the people who we're working with are pushing them to open up. People want to present this polished vibe of themselves, and they don't realize that that's blocking connection. I ask a story, I'll be taking notes at a content planning meeting or at a photo shoot, and I'm like, ooh, can I post about, they just say something funny about their family, or they have some inside joke between them. I'm like, ooh, can I write that? And they're like, no, don't put, I'm like, please, I'm telling you, this would be the best thing of our whole conversation today. And it's just so much pushing people to be willing to share the cracks that let people in, as opposed to polishing things that really keep them from being able to be seen and have other people feel seen because of their relatability.
It's funny because I was looking through speaking of social, we're streaming on YouTube and we're streaming on I posted one of the comments on there for a second, but there's comments across LinkedIn right now, Facebook, Twitter, all these different things coming in. A lot of great questions. We're going to get to Q&A maybe in about 5 minutes. We've gone over all these other topics. One of the questions I'm going to set you up for is my question, and I'll just set it up right now because X is launching a video competitor here soon, and so I'm going to ask you a question on that and try to get your thoughts. It's kind of a interesting thing there. But before we jump into that, I wanted to go over and talk about kind of the evolution of search engines and really try to discuss, like, algorithms has changed so much. We've introduced AI content. Google kind of accepted it, but then kind of started pushing back all these algorithms to basically filter out poor content. Not saying that AI generated content wasn't available, but that a lot of people were trying to scale content, and then they were pushing back against that. And I just want to kind of understand, like, how do you see AI changing SEO, changing the search engine experience, and optimizing for search engines?
Yeah. I think one of us volunteered to do that. Was it you, Tricia?
Sure. So search generative experience, right? This is search engines. Still, I mean, Google's leading the pack here, but at the end of the day, Google only cares about its user. And its number one objective in this space is to keep you on Google's network. So this is where the game is going to get interesting because, right now and before this time, up to this point, Google's giving you information to click through to go to. More and more, Google is wanting you to get that information on their network and stay there. The tricky part that they're navigating right now is crediting the brand owner or the writer, the voice that's the authentic producer of that content, and making sure to give them accreditation there. I mean, it's just wanting this to be a more human experience overall. That's what it's trying to do with AI, is be more predictive. So think about predictive search, right? You're typing in plumber and it predicts you want one near you, right? Plumber near me. And when that first started, it was very clunky. And I would be like, no, that is not what I'm searching for, Google. But now it almost gets it 100% right every single time. So the same thing is going to happen with SGE. Right now it's clunky, and it's trying to understand through AI what you're trying to accomplish. and give you that overall page experience. But it's also getting it wrong right now. But it will get better and better over time, I think, just the way predictive search is happening with, that example.
I was going to say, when I work with nonprofits, they rely on Google Analytics, right, to tell them how their marketing is happening. And I always tell them I don't want for them to be solely using a platform that has built the SEO. So it's measuring its own success. And in an academic world, that mean, me saying, hey, my paper's great because, I don't know, I wrote it. Here's my stats. I'll give you my stats, right? And so this is not how we do things, right? We can start with Google Analytics, but I ask them to overlay other SEO, other analytic programs so they can measure various ways of looking at this data. And so it's not just Google that should be driving this. It should be other systems so that we get a broader understanding of how effective we are in the market, right? And with our public.
I mean, Google's the leader in the space in terms of dominating search. Social media is disrupting that, of course. We talked about social search being a place, especially the younger generations are finding more and more valuable in getting information. But at the end of the day, your experience as a brand or a company or a person, if you're an influencer, your expertise, your authoritiveness, your trustworthiness, what Google calls EAT, is going to play a role. No matter where you are, that coming back to that authenticity, right, is going to reach the audiences more clearly, regardless of whether it's Google or whatnot. And AI is just going to help that channel or that platform get closer and closer to understanding what you're looking for. And I think it will just continuously get better over time. But at the end of the day, it's going to be there, and it's going to keep learning how to be better at what it's doing. And it's going to get, the information doubles equation, right? It's going to get exponentially better faster as we move into the years. I mean, AI 2 years ago is like AI 20 years ago, if you think about it in terms of how quickly it will move in and out of our lives. So it's incredibly important that we are operating ethically in this space and producing regulation. I think you touched on this in the very beginning, Dene, just to kind of bring it full circle, is that tech is always going to be ahead of law, right? So that's a delicate balance that we're going to have to strike as humans worldwide as we move into how this plays a role, not only in digital marketing, but in our homes and, outside of all these industries that we're talking about.
So before we started, everybody, we were having an internal discussion about ethics.
Oh, that's where it was. Yeah. Okay.
And so I mentioned that tech is always ahead of law. Law comes after. So if somebody does something over here, then you legislate for it, right? So you can't keep up with it. There's always going to be the need to come up with a new law to take over. But if we teach ethics sits at the foundation of everything we do, then law is not necessarily needed, right? I mean, this is what Martin Luther King talks about in the letter from Birmingham jail, right? There are laws that are bad laws, right? In Nazi Germany, bad laws, right? We don't want law to be driving us. We want the ethics of what it means to be human and how to treat each other with humanity. So this is what we're talking about. Yeah.
Good luck teaching our 60-year-old congressman how TikTok work anyway, because...
So this has been an amazing conversation, and I actually just want to keep talking about these things, but I realize we want to be respectful of everyone's time, and we do there's been a number of people on different platforms asking questions and things like that. And it's really cool seeing a lot of the different comments from people on there. But Michael, are you going to kind of navigate the Q&A for us a little bit?
Yeah, thanks for popping me back on, Kevin. I think we can get started with Chris's question here, and just want to say amazing conversation between everyone here, bringing so much insights and various valuable perspectives. But thank you for popping that up, Kevin. Chris had a question here. How will competition between AI heat up? So if company number one's AI figures out inhibiting company number 2. And what does that look like into the future? How does AI compete with AI?
That's a nice science fiction story. AI wars. I mean, it's possible. I mean, this is possible.
Battle bots.
It's actually happening right now, right? So Max Tegmark is a physicist. He's written a lot of books on this topic, but he joined 1,000 thought leaders on the topic of AI. So this is going a little bit outside of digital marketing, but an important part of that question. And they studied the future of AI and the implications of that. And between the 1,000 of them, this was an op-ed in Time magazine back in March 2023, if you're looking to read the full article, because it's very impressive and interesting and fascinating. But these physicists came up with 4 things that we shouldn't let AI do. Don't teach it to code. Don't connect it to the internet. Don't give it a public API. And don't start an arms race. And we've already done all 4 of these.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And the AI competing with AI is the arms race side of it, right? So we have Bard, right? That's
Right.
one of our AIs. And
Definitely.
then China has Ernie. So Bard and Ernie, to be funny about that, but it's true. And so these AIs are competing with each other to be better at what they're doing, to learn faster and provide a better experience. But it becomes an interesting dynamic when these systems actually start creating their own languages that we don't understand, that we can't impact, change. So this is where the ethics side comes in to that equation. So we already have that happening. We have an AI arms race in front of us right now.
And this
It's
was
just-
discussed. I mean, I was teaching this back in the 91, 92. We were talking about the fact that what's the difference between giving birth and replication, right? And the argument was, well, if you replicate, then it's not real, right? Giving birth is different. It's like, well, we've already passed that with artificial life and now AI. Replication is giving birth, and they're starting their own languages. They're able to communicate with each other in ways that humans can't communicate with them. So that becomes the issue moving forward. And it also puts us in a race with countries to be able to have the best coders, the best people know algorithms, the best science, the best computer science programs. And now we're fighting in academics, right? Having the best universities, the most research, and how much money is being poured into us or not. And if we fall behind in academics in the States, then we're going to fall behind in this rat race that's already begun. And that's something I wish politicians would get into their heads, is that we really need to stay abreast academically with all of this. And BARD is great, but that's different than actually knowing how to work and see by hand. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Great points there.
I was going to add to that, because it's a concept I'm passionate about, but it's I forget when I wrote the book Future Proof Your Marketing, but in that I was talking about what all these companies were moving towards, which was to basically create the digital equivalent of what an executive assistant would be, that every single person could have in their pocket. Because, like, if you think about how amazing having an executive assistant would be and all the things they could do for you in your life, and like how much more convenient that would make it, and then it's free, it's like, yeah, who would say no to that, right? Like, it's like, for sure, give me that executive assistant. But and what's funny is I'd say we're only about 20% of the way there on the assistant side of things. We're still very immature in reaching that kind of digital assistant. But that's the ultimate gatekeeper, and that's why I intentionally call it gatekeeper, because if you understand the power and the psychology of our attention, and that's what everyone is going for, is how to capture and keep our attention. When you have a gatekeeper for all of your attention, you have a serious amount of control in that, of what information that person sees, what they get, and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something, while I was always excited about the things that come, I think as I've delved deeper into psychology and the understanding of our attention and how important that is, that there needs to be a lot of guardrails around that and a lot of education around that, so that people have higher emotional intelligence, a higher literacy of their own self-awareness and self-management to be able to exist in this digital age. So I wanted to just add.
Yeah. So when people call for the end of it, higher education, because it's not necessary, I say,
No, it's more necessary than ever.
You really, it's more than ever do we need people to be educated, because the digital literacy is not something that just is there. It's something you really have to be aware of and taught. And it changes all the time, right? Digital literacy when I came here in 2006 was very different than digital literacy in 2024. And so being able to stay up with that.
But at the foundation, it's who's making this, who's benefiting from my interactions with this. How do my interactions with it impact my experience with it? At the basis, if people just knew those things, you know, and consistently knew those things about the tools that they were using, we would have more control over our experience and more, less chaos.
Right. And that's where the legal and ethical frameworks come into play. Because they kind of put those guardrails up to manage that process and keep it within those frames that kind of manage the chaos, because it will still continue to be chaotic as things change, disruptive.
I want to be respectful of everyone's time. We have hit 11 o'clock. If you're able to stay on a little bit later, that's great. If not, and you need to drop off, feel free to, because I know you may have something else scheduled. So thank you so much. But then, Michael, did you have another question? I have a question, but
I just had one more, and let's start with yours, Kevin, and then we can end it with mine, and I'll hand it back to you to kind of close things out.
So we didn't get to talk about video too much, and so I am asking this question in a couple different ways, because I think video and some of the different medias that are more in that rich media kind of space are really one of the big kind of at the forefronts of what we're doing. I was mentioning X is launching a video competitor to compete with the likes of like YouTube and TikTok and things like that. And I just want to get your get your general thoughts around that kind of, I guess, both X launching that social platform, but also just rich media in general and kind of video in general and its place in everything. So
I have a thought that video is almost like the other end, like the opposite of AI in some ways, because having a real human face saying words is like the opposite of an AI generated image and text post. Okay. From my perspective, again, I have a 12-year-old and a 10-year-old, and there's a reason why they want to go to TikTok to search things. It's because there's a person that's going to be there that they can see their face and they can research further. You know, when they're asking their watch like a question and they're getting an answer, there's a measure of trust there. And they feel like they've got a superficial answer to something. But if they want to know something deep, if they want to know a deeper answer, if they've got a topic they want to dig into, they're going to TikTok because they want to see people's faces talking about the thing that they care about, the thing that they want to learn about. So I think it's almost a balancing act of, you know, we're using this AI over here, but video has a weight to it, especially if it's got a human face telling a story, explaining an experience. It's got major weight to it. And that's why people are drawn so much to YouTube. That's why X is coming out with a new video platform, because there's weight in people seeing people's faces talking about information. And when we're talking about the many different platforms, it's like the algorithms that are leading what kind of content is going out. X wants to have this platform because they have a different type of content that they like to push. And so that content might not get the same priority on other platforms that it could get on, well, let's even stop using the word platforms. In this room, this room pushes a certain type of message, and this room pushes a certain type of message. And so if you have different types of messages that you want to reach, again, different types of audiences, you put that message in that room. And if you don't have a room, then you build that room. And that's what's happening right now, is they're building that room so they can have that audience and push a message forward with their algorithm. You might not know that if you don't have the literacy to understand what algorithms actually do when you interact with them, which is why it's so important that people learn more about algorithms and how every single action that you take on social media impacts the experience that you have. Kevin, you were talking about how important it is for people to become more emotionally intelligent. And that's like, to me, that's like kind of the trick. I'm like, I feel like when I'm teaching people about monitoring their behavior on social media and how it impacts their feed, what I'm actually doing is tricking them into thinking about their thoughts and their actions in real life and how that impacts their life experience.
Well said.
Well, I'm going to say the thing that we need to be concerned about, though, is the rapid pace of the lack of authenticity of the videos that are being produced and can be produced now. Right. So if you give gravitas to a moving image of a person talking, let's say me talking right now, you say, okay, well, Dene must be real because she's sitting among these other real people. What she's saying must have some weight. But we're getting so good with video. And I would say 3D modeling. I mean, the kind of work my students are doing in my classes, the meta-human that they're building, they built for a VR game last semester. It's getting so good that you can build a human-like entity in a video and then spout all kinds of things that people might say, well, it must be human. They're saying these things, it must be good. And so that's part of the ethics. And as much as we want to teach ethics, there are people who are never going to want to learn ethics because it's going to net them what they want, which is something that might be sinister for the rest of us. I was always a big fan of Twitter, always. And now I'm on it because there's a few people in the room that I still want to talk to. But do I like that room? Do I feel comfortable walking in that room all the time? No, it's not the same room. Deep fakes. Dene, I see Kyle saying deep fakes. Absolutely, deep fakes.
Yeah, Dene, you're so right about that. And it even simpler than that is like taking clips from other things and putting context around them that's not accurate,
not
right?
Yeah.
Which again is teaching people that everything you see, can you just research a little? You see that video and you have this reaction. Can you go to Google and type in or place in the link to that video and find other references to that video to make sure that that video is actually talking about what they say that it's talking about.
And that means research. That means teaching people how to do that research. That's not something that they're getting in an everyday experience. That's coming from real learning, that they're getting it from you guys and you're working with them as clients, getting from classes that we're teaching. It takes a lot of work to learn to think. And to be discriminatory in your thinking.
To have a pause before you react, to have that's probably the biggest thing that we all need to learn to do.
Take a breath.
Yes.
I tell my students, when you see something you don't like, take your hands off the damn keyboard. Just move them back, take a breath, and then say, is what I'm seeing real? And then go look. And then come back and respond, but find a way to respond properly.
I think that's always been a challenge, though, what you both are talking about, but just in terms of like what we're doing as humans, video content is going to remain a forefront space.
Yeah.
And I think the trend that we're going to see with these moves, like Elon Musk putting up a YouTube-like streaming room on television, is that you're going to see micro influencers get the opportunity to have a bigger space than the macro influencers we're used to all tuning into, right? The Brad Pitts of the world, all the celebrities and superstars and these multi-million-dollar productions, movies that won't go away, but it now has a space that it has to compete with, that the younger generations actually find more authentic than a celebrity coming on and saying this shampoo rocks. A micro influencer actually has more influence on their buying decisions. And so that space will be interesting to watch. And I see it getting more and more competitive and being a bigger player in the ad space to get those users' attention.
Let's Michael, you had one question, and then we probably want to wrap it up since we're a little over time here. But
yeah, I was saying I think that comes back to that trust and authenticity that really the whole panel's been talking about this whole time. Is you can create a much deeper connection on that one-to-one level on the micro influencers and the affinity you gain with them. Yeah, we are running way over, so I don't want to apply too much pressure to the remainder of the board or the remainder of the panel here. But when we're talking about future proofing for AI, for digital, all these spaces, if you're a student, digital marketing, expert wanting to stay ahead of things, business owner, I would love to hear one tip from each of you as far as how to stay ahead of this rapid evolution we're seeing, or what's the first step they should take that you recommend them taking to ultimately, master this AI and digital evolution we're seeing?
I'm a teacher. I say read, and read widely. Read everything you can. Read from different perspectives. Don't just read marketing materials. Read things from philosophy. I mean, read all over and get a real sense of what's happening. Whether or not we can future-proof, I don't know. But can we at least become girded with the right kind of tools? Yes.
Awesome. Great question. Yeah, I've heard, many in the SEO industry talking about, follow AI in, people in machine learning and artificial intelligence, because they're the one that are creating the technology, building technology, training the bots, right? So you're going to get much different and deeper perspective there than, what we're just doing in the digital marketing space. So I love that.
Yeah, that staying informed is really critical, but I think there's also the element of being intimidated by all of this. So, just as a general person who maybe hasn't, who obviously hears about it all the time, but doesn't really know how to play in that space or enter it, is just like get ChatGPT. It's free, and start playing with it and having it help you do things. There's the element of just being informed, but then there's also like dabbling. And that kind of gets you more curious and wanting to be more informed about it. So I would say play around, have fun, see what it can do for you. Might be one way to enter this space if you're feeling intimidated by it.
Awesome. Thank you,
I feel
Tricia.
like
I could not agree
my
more.
tip maybe feels a little outside, but your internal team, don't let it be too homogenous.
Yeah.
It's very easy to think one way and use tools one way and market one way if that's all you're surrounded by. But if you've got people from different generations and different backgrounds, you're going to be much better future-proofed.
Yeah.
I'll add a thing there, because this is passionate, close to my heart, is know and love your customer, align your strategy around them, and then monitor, measure, and adapt. If you have your finger on the pulse of your customer and you just constantly follow and keep realigning with them, you're going to future-proof your marketing.
There you go. All right, Kevin.
What Lacey was saying about ChatGPT. One of the first things I do with my students is have them do an ego search on Google, right? So type their name in to see what comes up. Then I have them do an ego search on ChatGPT. Who is Michael Patrick Cortez? And see what they get. And it's shocking. I found out I went to Berkeley and graduated with a PhD from Berkeley.
Congrats.
Who would have thought?
Dene, I'm doing that next as soon as we get off the panel. I'm doing
really
that.
Cool. It's like, oh wow.
ChatGPT is very creative. Yes, it's very creative. It comes up with amazing stories that are not always true.
All right, thank you.
I just have to say this has been such a great conversation. I could not be more grateful for every panelist and you, Kevin, as the moderator, but I'll hand it back over to you to finish things up.
Again, thank you to everything Michael said. Thank you, Dene, Tricia, Lacey J. I appreciate all of you. This was an amazing conversation. I want to continue it and keep going, but unfortunately we have to stop. This will be live on all the platforms as far as video, YouTube. Make sure to go out there and share it. And thank you again so much for being part of this.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks,
And
everyone.
thanks everybody for tuning in. We really appreciate you.
Yeah,
Bye.
good to see everybody.